Hey, Nick, I see ya. There we go. I think we got it. All right, so can't stay. Okay. Where's the share? Oh, there we go. Copy. And hello to. And now hello to. Oh, well, Candace, how are you? I have to pop out the stream or the chat for there we go. That way I can see everybody. Can everybody hear me okay? Hear me, hear me. Today started out like any normal day, and then it got better, and then it got better. Yep. Okay. Didn't want to kick that thing over. Enter the waiting room. Admit. Very good. Let's see how we do on this integration.
Oh.
Matt, okay. You know what? You look familiar. Have we met?
Maybe.
Oh, interesting. Okay. All right. So we're gonna try and do this collaboratively. I think I'm broadcasting live. If you have the YouTube channel up at all, you make sure you mute it because it might reverb back.
Yeah, I did.
Okay,
For sure.
All right, because believe it or not, I do this a lot, and I'll start hearing a reverb, and I'll have to go quickly to the mute button there.
Definitely.
Okay, so have you seen this last time?
No, this is my first time.
That's okay. This is my second time.
Oh, okay.
What I'm hoping for is a good output. Matt Slomski or whatever. That's Howard. And then Candace,
Okay.
he was. They were here last week and had some pretty good questions. Nick LaFond is a good buddy of mine. He said he can't stay, but I don't know if he'll stick around.
Okay.
But he's about a 17 or 1800 rated player. So if he has good questions, that would actually be pretty good for the group. I think he knows about this because he's a subscriber.
Ah, very good.
Yeah. What I'm hoping is to get the subscribers up, and then we can do this. Okay, so yes, I'm a Scooble Doodle. Okay, yeah. Candace is a is a 1500 players, which is good. So the object of this is we want to promote questions for beginners. We can offer to play if we want, with the option of a quick analysis.
Yeah.
So
Sounds good.
I had Eric here the other day. I think he might be coming today. And oh, that's a good move. So I was looking at your profile, and how long you been a national master, Matt?
All right. Let's see. Since 2013, so basically 7 years.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, this guy told me that he thinks better in correspondence, and I don't think very well in correspondence. So we might be equals on correspondence. Plain. I do much better in the live stuff. All right,
me too.
Let's see. So I advertised you as National Master, and hopefully people decide they want to talk to you. The reason why I asked, I asked you a question earlier, and I was at work when I did it. No, that. Oh, that. Where did I thought I asked you? Okay, anyway, the reason why I'm a little sketchy on this one is because I'm not sure how many people will come.
I see.
Yes, Candice, go ahead and ask the question, and we'll see if we can get this started. And you know, Howard, you can do this too. I'm going to try to see if I can advertise this a little bit. Commented. Michael Scott should be coming. Do you see me in the comments? No. Is this another thing where Twitch doesn't like you again? What's your opinion about the Baldwin Agreement? I don't know. You know anything about a Baldwin Agreement, Matt?
No, I don't. I'll just look this up.
Looks like he got a show. One E4, E5. Oh, E4, E5, D4. E4, E5, D4, D5, and finally Queen takes. We'll put it up. We'll put it up. Can you see my board, Matt? Like if I.
Yeah, I can see your well, you're looking at the I see your Lee chess.
Oh, you know what? Now that I think about it, you don't have to do that because you're in my Zoom, so I can share screen and you can see everything live.
Yeah, definitely.
Here we go. All right, so now now I'm sharing screen, and
I see your screen.
He says E4, E5, D4, D5. I guess this is the Baldwin Agreement he's talking about.
Ah, okay. This is the one.
Yes, Michael, I can see you now. Yes. Apparently Twitch doesn't like most people. And then it says D takes E5.
Yeah, looks natural.
E4. And then he wants to know what the opinion is.
About this opening.
Yeah.
So do you want to start, or do you want to?
Yeah, by all means. That's what you're here for. Yeah, you're a special guest. You can talk all you want.
Yeah. So I long time ago, I played a guy like maybe when I was not a really good player, like maybe I don't know 1400. I don't want to just insult people that are 1400 level, of course, but I played an opening similar to this, and basically this end game, or it's basically a queenless middle game, and you have to know how to coordinate pieces and put them on the best square. But there's a variation that you can show, but there's a pawn e5, but it's a different opening. Like,
Let's do
it's
this.
like
Let me interrupt you real quick because I can do something
yeah.
special. You got a Lead Chess account?
Yes,
All
I
right,
do.
we're gonna do something really special, and
Invite me?
it doesn't look like it's going to allow me to do it. But I have special studies
Yeah,
that I
you can make a
use
study.
just for this occasion.
Very good.
And where did the? It's I don't know why it's not right. There it is. Chess teachers and learners. I use this as a chess teachers and learners study thing. So chess teachers and learners Q&A. Good. And empty. We'll take white for now. Create, and then your user ID.
My user ID is SLOM. That's it. Yep.
Perfect. And then contributor. So now when you get to the Lead Chess page, you can actually move the pieces.
All right, perfect. So I see it. Yeah.
Okay, so you got control.
Yeah, so this reminds me a little bit about a Queenless Middle game if I go back. But I play this sort of scheme. It's like I basically had a well, maybe it's not that, but maybe this one, take there. We quit the queen trade off. It's almost like this, but I just play this really. It's not a gambit really, but it's really odd because they have double pawns, isolated pawns on the E file, but they are not weaknesses because they're not on an open file or half an open file. They can't be attacked, so they can just do contributing duties to cover all these key squares without having to worry about any weaknesses. So it's a really interesting thing, but apparently this is not so bad for black. It's with the queen's off the board. But
I've seen this before. That there was somebody, a national master, that introduced this as the new Philidor.
Yeah, definitely. So this is basically Queen Elizabeth middle game. You want to know what you want to put pieces on. So maybe now 3, but they go knight 6 natural moves. The point of this middle game is to put your pieces on the best square possible. But as far as the open that we presented about this T5, I've never seen this before in actual play, so I have to think about it for a little bit. But maybe, yeah, the same thing rules apply that you want to put your pieces in the best squares. So I don't know if it's like going to be this acceptable if you do this one. Maybe it is. It's basically reminding me of that sort of game that I lost to, and honestly, years ago. But maybe, yeah. So I think that is. I don't know who your opponent is. If you're playing against a guy like me, this is not going to be acceptable. But if you're playing against a person of your caliber, maybe 1500-ish, this is probably playable as black for sure. If you want to play this way.
Candace, what's the? Are you looking at it from the point of view of white or black? Let's see here. The thing I don't like about the mimicking a variation, like if they play bishop c4 and bishop e6, is if they take, it would seem like these two pawns would be weaker than this pawn.
Yes, definitely. It's true. So it's probably part of the gambit. So, but I think that it's, like I said, depends on the opponent that you're going to play against. But yeah, it's not playable if you're playing against an expert like you or a master like me. But if you're playing against
listen to this.
Yeah.
Candace, where was that game? Was it in Lead Chess? What's this? Does this actually say the opening? It doesn't. He's saying that there was a game played by somebody rated 2203 and 2159.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I to be honest, I wouldn't actually think that somebody that high would do that anywhere.
Yeah, so was the game like a bullet game or like really fast game?
It looks like it's from from my coach versus one guy from the chess club. It looks like it was a local game to him, so they were local ratings.
Oh, okay. I see.
Was it after that moved to a draw? Yeah, that you know what that sounds like is they said that they moved to a draw. I don't know if I would really like this. I think I've played against this before.
Yeah.
If I was to liquidate it, I'd probably liquidate it this way.
Yeah, definitely.
Try to keep the queens on the board. Like that.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. It's like maybe looking like a little, maybe a weird center counter gambit with
yeah,
e4
weird
e5.
center counter gambit. Yeah.
Yeah. A little bit.
You know, so what's your question exactly, Kenneth? Are you wondering just a general opinion, or if you're wondering if it's playable? Because I think it's playable, and it might even be playable all over. But I would give white a default advantage. With the possibility that they could just be there for a draw. Yeah. I saw that and I thought, why the... Oh, yeah. He said he saw this and he said, why would someone play like this? If you notice the comments that Matt and I are making, I don't think that it's conventional to play in this way.
Yeah, so the thing is, like, I have another master at my local club he plays a really obscure opening that to the same thing applies, but he plays it like basically in the opening he goes rook a2, he goes a3 and rook a2, but there's a pawn of b3, something like really strange that nobody ever plays but him.
So you're like talking about something like this?
Yeah, it's like a3 and then rook a2, some like development. Yeah, e5 and rook a2, and he beats people because nobody knows how to play against it, but they just pretty much never study against it. So he likes to play moves and openings that nobody has prepared against or seen before. But he's a national master, so it's basically not a matter of if, like, was this opening, so it's unplayable, but no, it's not unplayable. It's basically throwing off the balance of your opponent to say, okay, it's my game now, so I control what's going to happen.
Well, Kenneth has a very good question. How do you play with that? Okay, let me flip this board around.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay. Flip the board. So we're looking at it from Black's point of view. All right.
Yeah.
First off, we have to realize that this move here is legit.
Definitely, yeah.
And then this move here might be a little questionable.
Definitely.
So the way that you play against moves like this is you always think about how you would play it principled. So this move that I played out is probably the most principled, yes? And then when they played rook a2, that does nothing to develop the pieces. It just puts the rook along this file. So you can do almost anything you want that takes control of the center or develops a piece. Okay? So you could play that, followed by that, and you can claim that Black has an advantage. And then from there, You don't try to blast him off the board. You continue to activate your pieces and get him as active as possible, and then follow the rules like castle, connect your rooks, and then once you finish development, you attack him. If there's a spot where you can attack earlier because they made another mistake or made a mistake, you can attack them. But for the most part, you just continue with your development, take control of the center, and then attack them when you're finished developing. That's the general. It's really that easy, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have something to add, Matt, you go right on ahead.
Yeah, so basically, I learned later on in my development chess skills is that a lot of people, there's two types of chess players that play the opening. One of them is like hardcore, tell you everything from the book, everything from the computer, everything that everybody recommends. It's like, okay, I have to be an advantage because the computer says it, the book says it, the grandmaster says it, all the top players do that. But they're not comfortable with playing the openings that they're just recommended. But the thing is also, you have a advantage, but you have to memorize only moves. You have to know theory to the T, or else you just don't get anything. You're just miserable the whole game. That's not really a good, healthy thing. But the second type of player is to play in a style that is not going to be advantage per se, but you are very comfortable with playing this position. So you know all the plans, you know where to put these pieces, and how to play the middle games every time. So in that sense, psychologically, you have an advantage. So maybe not the computer degrees, but you know what to do better than the theoretical plus 0.3.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, I don't know if you probably know about this, but you have that other one. I believe it's... It's either that one or...
Yes, you're right. It's exactly like that. Well, can this guy with the B3 A3 Rookie 2, he played this real rated games, like the long games. He can play definitely with Blitz for sure, but he played on rated games for low rated people.
Yes.
This just confused them, saying, "Oh, you don't know what to do now because you don't. Don't worry about this."
Yeah, that's right. There's one that I pulled off against a. I like to call him a. What do I like to call him? Oh, I like to call him an ex-expert.
Oh, really?
Because at one time he was rated around 2100, but now he's basically consistently around 1950. He'll pop up over 2000 every once in a while and then pop right back down. But I like to tease him about that. One of the things he likes to do is he likes to play that B4 line.
Ah, yeah.
So we got into this conversation, and this has to do with Candace's question, which is he's kind of very theoretically minded and doesn't like to admit it. So he was talking about how everything should be always some kind of theory. And I said, well, you don't really have to have theory and play a decent game of chess. I mean, you can mess things up and play a good game of chess. I mean, I could play one F3 and you can't immediately refute it if I still follow principled chess. So he challenged me on that.
Yeah.
And I said, okay. And I played one F3 against him. We went down to the middle game, or the end game, and he did win that game. But it was, I think it might have been just something I missed. But he didn't refute it. So I looked at him. I said, okay, so you won. But I mean, did you win it because of the opening? And he said, no. And
exactly.
That basically proved my point. And one of the things that this has done is there was a pretty high national master, I think. He would support this in free chess, and his development scheme was like this. And then, when they go like this, like this, like this,
Mm-hmm.
and then castle, and like this, and then they'd castle, and it would look kind of like a King's Indian. And once the King's Indian came about, he would start attacking the center.
Yes, definitely.
You know what? If you compared it to a hippo, then yeah, it would be pretty much like a hippo. But there's some weird visual tricks in this opening, because what people want to do is when they're ready to try to castle, they play things like this, right?
Yeah.
And then you'll see, let's say this, and then what, let's say the black or white side wants to do is they'll try to do that, and they'll forget that the knight's sitting on f2. Usually that's in blitz. They'll forget the knight's on f2, and then they'll just drop the piece. But
yeah, definitely. I
have played this against 15, 16, and 1700 players in over the board tournaments, and they've missed that before. I'll do it like for the fun of it, but yeah, they've missed this. Of course, I can't say that I've never dropped a piece like that before. So,
yeah.
But yeah,
so
yeah. If you were to compare it, it's a lot like the hippo, and they're probably about the same when it comes to who has the advantage.
Yeah, for example, if you want to have a true hippo transposition, it's basically add this opening like b3 and bishop b2. And basically, you can transpose that hippo like maybe knight a3, knight c3, knight c2. It's basically the hippo, but the different mover, but transpose it to the hippo.
Actually, I thought the hippo was this. Here. Isn't this the hippo?
Yeah, this movers, yeah.
And then you kind of go like this.
Yeah. G3.
Yeah. The only major difference is that instead of creating this Swiss cheese of a pawn structure, you're creating some kind of weird King's Indian type pawn structure and placing the knights on the outer rim.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's maybe a quasi hippo with the knights in f2 and c2.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I don't really believe in it, honestly. The guy that I was talking about when he was doing this in free chess, he was claiming that he could beat Crafty.
Oh, okay.
So he would take this opening and say that if you take Crafty out of their opening book or their pre-prescribed stuff back then, this was I think 1998 or 99. And he would claim that if you did that Crafty was essentially easy to beat. So he would do this consistently, and he would win most of the time. And then about, I think 2 years later, they claimed that he was using a computer, which is possible, but I actually kind of believed in the guy. So it's been 20 years since I've ever heard of him, but a lot of the advice that he gave, I still follow.
Yeah, definitely. So it's basically, it looks similar to the hippo, and hippo just destroys computers. So maybe it's the same, sort of off of the same thread of winning against a computer.
Eric says, "Good morning. I've heard about Hedgehog as being good against computers."
Not sure with a c5 push or c4 push if you're white. It's maybe too exposing. So basically, anti-computer lines, nothing push on the 4th rank or the 5th rank if you're black. Just waiting for them to make the first push of the, for example, if you want to just say you're playing as white,
you got control. If you want to pull up a position, you got control of the board.
Yeah, I'll just make the moves on the board. So, all right. So if it's the hippo you're talking about, so the computers are going to be playing the best line, quote unquote. So they're going to be developing the pieces. There. They're going to be doing this bishop there, bishop there, their knight there, queen e7. h3 is important to make sure there's no bishop there. So they're going to probably castle, maybe queenside, then a3. Then I'm going to do rook e8, then knight e2. Done. Basically, what you're doing as a hippo, if you're white, if they go e4, you go d4. If they go d4, you go e4. And they close up the center, and the computers are terrible at playing those positions compared to open buildings. So if you play the hedgehog, it's more open, allows more chances for the computer to have an open game. So when they have an open game, they just destroy everybody because their tactical abilities are unmatched. But in theoretical endgames, people like Hikaru Nakamura, Magnus Carlsen can see their blind spots and take advantage of that and win. So does that make sense?
Did that even make sense there, Eric? You hopefully you heard everything. I just want to make sure that my broadcasts to both Twitch and YouTube are good on the voice.
I see.
And it says, yes, that makes sense. I'm wondering how true that is with the latest Leela or Stockfish with the you know the new what do you call those, the engines that have the
neural networks.
Neural networks. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. You're an expert in hippo and hedgehog. Oh, you're not an expert. Okay, I see.
Oh, you can see Twitch as well?
Yeah, I can see it.
Oh, probably
is
it from mine? Good.
Yeah, I can see it. You're a computer geek, so I see.
I am not. I don't know about me being a really good at computers anymore, but I'm getting back into it. I'm good enough that if I offered my services as a computer doctor around here, I can do it. Let's see.
Yeah. So expanding upon this thought process of how to beat a computer is one thing that Hikaru Nakamura just pointed out is like a thing with engines. No matter how good they are, no matter how they get neural networks in, is there's a thing called a horizon factor. Basically, it's a computer making a move that is making sense. But with the computer, let's say if they go, for example, on the board, they say, all right, they go queen 7. Queen 7, Hikaru Nakamura just says right away that the computer lost the horizon, quote unquote. So the computer doesn't know how to make progress in making the positions better. So they're playing minutia moves, it's crazy moves, like a queen sliding over to use a square and saying, okay, now there's a chance to win. So once the computer loses the horizon, Nakamura knows that he has an advantage and he can do something that is productive where the computer will not do something productive. The game is going to be a win. So basically he's going to be pivoting, and basically the computer will make some crazy mistake, and this King of One is like wonder looking, but the computer just naturally makes mistakes and loses the game because of that one mistake. The grandmasters, top grandmasters like Hikaru Nakamura and Magnus Carlsen can see that and just take advantage of that with a positional understanding of the best. So that's basically that's like a horizon factor, and it's basically the key to beating engines for the humans. So does that make sense? So it doesn't matter if they have neural networks, but yeah, they know how to combat computers.
Did we have a match between like Nakamura and one of those new computers lately?
I don't know.
I don't think he's done that in a while, but he did it a while back.
Yeah. So he played against the Stockfish computer in chess.com, and he beat the computer at times. He has actually Twitch streams that he just played Stockfish on chess.com for a match, and he was beating it because he knows this compactness factor sort of concept. In like a rapid game, 50 minutes in 10-second increment.
Candace, yeah, you can try to send the link to my message on Twitch, yes. I know that we have trouble with that a little bit. There it is. Is there? There's two? Let's try this, see what happens. Oh, that was last Monday. Copy. I'm gonna try to see if I can pull up another game.
Okay.
Paste. And then analysis. And then download. Copy. Add chapter. Let's see how that works. Okay, so was it 20? I thought it was longer than 20 minutes. Oh, it is 20 minutes. Okay, whatever you say. So here, and you should see it on your end over there, Matt. You can move it as fast as you like, because I
okay. So is it a new chapter?
Quickly.
Okay, so is it the board that I'm seeing right now is like okay, Canis versus Never Chess.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a funny name, Never the Chess TV.
Yeah. All right, so Canis is whites. So let's do this. All right. That's 3. The Queen's Gambit accepted lines. So basically, it's a preference if you want to do e4 or e3. So a lot of people play like top levels play e3 with the Queen's Gambit accepted to basically shore up this pawn. There's no worries about c5 taking advantage of it. So like e4 is also good. It's like a preference thing. So knight f6, take there, knight c6, knight f3. Just developing this really good, very national moves. And bishop e6. So Canis, did you see this fork? Question mark? It's a very instructional move to castle. It's not a bad move, but did you see this fork?
Oh, he played bishop d6, didn't he?
Yeah, and there's an opportunity to fork him. But you castled instead. So did you see this one, or you just played so fast it's like...
he said, now I see it. Okay.
Yeah, it's not a blitz game, so you don't have to... Like, in this case, you don't have to play autopilot moves. You ought to think about, like, maybe for... Like, one thing you want to keep in mind is, like, a mindset thing I teach all my students, is that ask yourself, why did they play that move, that last move? And if that is a way to take advantage of that last move.
Right, right.
Now you know, oh, this bishop is aligned with knight, and I have a pawn here, so let's do this one, and you win the game, Canis.
A lot of the times it's also just chess geometry, because people kind of miss the idea. Like, the hardest one is the knight.
Definitely, yeah.
You'll miss them on both sides where there's a bunch of forks with the knights, because you didn't train yourself to actually see the knight possibilities.
Yeah, and basically one advantage about knights is it's also better than the bishops in time pressure. When you have time pressure against your opponent, it's better to have a knight handy versus the bishop. So you can basically do the dreaded knight forks that gets everybody, even grandmasters, they don't see knight forks and really like time pressure struggles if you just play well enough. But in this case, yeah, knight is really effective if you learn how to do it, but basically it's not I'll say not user friendly, so you have to get used to the knights before you utilize them effectively. But a lot of people say, oh, I want to trade off the knights for the bishops because the bishops are better, but not always. But later on your career, especially if you have a closed position, knights are really thriving in these ones. Like if you have a closed pawn structure, you want to keep your knights. The bishops you can trade off, but you want to keep the knights because you can move or easier between all the pawns, no matter what the color of the pawn structure is. But if you have a dark square pawn structure, like let's say if there's no forker here, this bishop on c1 is going to be what's considered bad bishop. So the pawns in e5 and d4 are going to be blocking the array to have his freedom. It'll be like in a big cage. So bishop, this one will be in this, in theory, it'll be like literally to have a trade off a knight. So it's all subjective, but it's based on the position.
Nice.
So you castled. So sorry for the long-winded explanation. So castles e5 to block this e5. I think that your opponent saw that you had e5, so you just say, okay, no, you can't do e5 now. So
yeah, it's a correction of mistakes on that one.
exactly. So a lot of people, well, it's a basically if you see a move that your opponent should play, and you didn't play it, and just correct it. But one thing that is harder to do in chess, but you don't want to turn a blind eye to it, is like, let's say if you move a piece on a square that's really bad, you think that I can't go back now, I can't possibly go back, there's no way. But in chess, you are having the ability, like let's say if you go knight b5, all right, and they go maybe, well, let's see, maybe a better example, like let's see. So the point is, like, if you make a move and it's going to put a piece on a bad square that gets targeted later, you say, in your mind you block out the knight or your piece moving back to this other square. But it's a possibility. But a lot of people at the beginner level or 1500 level to say there's no possibility of that. So they just have a blind spot. But sometimes, very crucial times, you have to say, okay, I made a mistake, I can go back. But a lot of people sometimes like, I can't afford this mistake. I just want to make sure that my opponent doesn't look at me like I'm a fool. They have to commit to something and just go with it. If it's bad, it's bad. But yeah, e5, bishop e5 is trying to do this really like cheeky pin and just try to win the knight. So if your opponent is stabby, okay, he castles, so that's a good thing. So yep, so you took the knight and you have basically
the fork is there again.
Yeah, this is a fork is there again. So did you see it? Yes, you did.
Oh, hey, I gotta add something for you. The reason why we're looking at this game is because he sent me a message that said I played a game today versus a guy on chess.com, and he was very salty after I won. So I guess we have to address the fact that his opponent decided he was going to insult him after he won this game.
I see.
When you see somebody who's salty, just copy and paste all the comments and put it on your blog. Yeah, this is good because okay, so at first you missed the fork, and then when he blocked the fork, you went ahead and activated a bishop and then took advantage of the fork when it came up the second time, so that's good.
Yeah, so that's a very common tactic that is basically overlooked a lot of times, but it's very common. It's the removal of the guard. So knight c6, well, the knight and c6 was defending e5, well, that's a crucial piece to defend against the fork. So once you remove that piece in c6, like you did, the fork is reappearing all of a sudden. So that is the linchpin of defending against the fork, but he lost it and he won the game. Hopefully he won the game. So let's see how the game progresses. So it goes bishop a6 attacking your rook, and you took the knight, you took your rook, pawn takes there. This is a really good in-between move. So you can take there, but it's basically this one you're attacking this rook is more valuable than the bishop. So yeah, king takes there, queen takes the bishop. So we have an extra piece. Well, it's not really an extra piece, but you have a better pawn structure at least, and you have two pieces for rook, which is definitely in general way better than this, like for you in advance like this. So we can maybe go queen c4 if you want to do that, or right away after activating the queen. So he goes c5, anticipating maybe just covering d4 as well. Bishop b3, natural developing moves. c4, wow.
Oh,
Yeah.
this is what happened in the game?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you know what? I've seen stuff like this happen a lot. This is actually common.
Yeah, the c4 was common?
Just, you get into positions where people will just play moves on inertia.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter what they play, so they'll start sacrificing pawns to see if they can get little tricky tricks on you, and it doesn't... if you pay attention to stuff, you usually don't have to worry about it. So yeah, things like c4 common. You might see, like, when the queen takes, you might even see c5, and then if the queen moves, they'll play c4 again. I've seen that a lot on even on chess.com.
Yeah, I thought that was a mirage effect, that this is a rook, not a queen. So
that happens
basically,
too, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, so basically you forget that it's a queen right there, not a rook anymore. So they're just like, oh, I missed that. Doh.
Oh, can I address something real quick before we get too far?
Mm-hmm.
If you go back right here, I want to point out, Canis, that at this point you're winning a piece.
Mm-hmm.
So when he played bishop a6, you playing rook f1 would have still won the piece.
Mm-hmm.
So when you took the knight and he took the rook, you effectively say that he can have the exchange instead of the piece. And in my opinion, or in somebody else's opinion, it could be better to say that the piece is better than the exchange.
Definitely.
Does that make sense? And I think maybe when you get to this position, you can actually write something like that down to kind of familiarize yourself with exchange strategy. Because there's a whole book or even a whole theory on how to exchange properly, even to the effect that you don't trade down pieces or pawns unless it maximizes your position and minimizes your opponent's position. So I just thought I would address that before we moved on too far.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. Where were we? We were here.
With the pawn stack and z4.
Yeah, you're doing very interesting stuff here, so I thought I would just interrupt real quick and then...
Yeah, definitely, totally. So the only thing they can't even go c5. So like I thought it was like maybe a clearance tactic. So clearance tactics are basically sacrificing a pawn maybe to clear this c5 square for another piece. But like c5, after the queen takes, there's no c5 with the queen and bishop.
There's no way to make any progress. I agree.
Yeah. So c4 is a flat out blunder. But I was thinking that, maybe it's clearance, but there's no c5. But rook c8, maybe wants to go c5 right now. This is basically going back to like a comeback to like, why did the opponent play that last move? He wants to go c5, I think.
Yeah, and then he's also kind of... I think this is one of those things where he wants to do something he's doing a move to do another thing, but then forgets that move may create a bigger weakness.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So the fact that he's leaving this pawn hanging in order to allow this pawn to move might be, I don't know, it might not be so great. You'd have to kind of calculate it, and then, you'd find something like bishop takes c5, and then knight b5 will get the bishop back out.
Exactly, yeah. So it's something like this to try to trap the bishop, but there's always knight b5, rook d1 things, and there's no problems for white in that case. The bishop is guarded, right? Just playing enough. And once the bishop goes, it's going back to the linchpin area that we had knight c6, just removing the defender, and c5 pawn will be gone, and the bishop will be free.
Yeah, and no matter which direction he moves, you can still take the pawn and then follow up with b4.
Exactly, yeah. So, but he didn't play the bishop takes a7.
Oh, he didn't take a7.
Yeah, he played e5, which is smart. So if you don't want to calculate all the things that it's like it's a safe move. It's like, don't worry about think about calculating everything. But just play simple chess and play to win. So a5 is a really good alternative, but just don't be greedy because you're technically winning in this game if you don't take the pawn. So you
And
play.
he does.
Okay, yeah, and this really paid off to.
I don't understand why your opponent would get salty about this. He made obvious mistakes, and you're basically just playing normal chess, it looks like.
Exactly, yeah. So, place queen there, and before, yeah, very good lineup. Is like you can do this one.
This is really good
as well. Yeah.
This is really good. And
Exactly.
And even worse threat on that is the fact that he can play knight takes f7.
Yeah, this is a cool finish. That is knight takes f7 mate.
Oh, is that mate? Oh, it is, isn't it? That's how he. That's
Yeah,
how
with
he
the
pen. No wonder. Still, your opponent
Beautiful.
shouldn't get all salty about this. He clearly had no idea what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly,
That was a nice finish, I'll say. Yeah. But yeah, I think that this is a good game by you. So one thing that you've missed e5 the first time, but you didn't miss it the second time. As you play bishop b5 and take the knight. So basically, congrats to you in this game.
Yeah. And I like that bishop to d4 move.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
That's probably your brilliancy move right there. Let me see. There was a couple of messages over here. Hold on.
Mm-hmm.
What's the best way to learn how to better evaluate what minimizes, maximizes your position? Material is easy. The bishop pair versus the knight, bishop and knight versus bishop without a color. Also makes sense. But beyond that, I sometimes just take my best guess on what feels right. I'm happy to resign our game. Oh, no. You don't have to resign our game, even though you're losing from move 1. No. Don't resign anything out of just because it's not a big deal. Let's see your question. Let's see if do you understand that question, Matt? I mean, I understand it, but you're the special guest, so I want to give you the chance.
Yeah, so I think that this is a perfect book for to address just that same topic. Is Jeremy Summons The Amateur's Mind, or maybe it's like a recess of chess, but the Amateur's Mind, especially, it goes over Jeremy Summon, going over the games of his students and seeing have the student just have their verbally analyze their games in front of him. He's not an international master, so he wants to see their mindset of how they think how they evaluate the businesses every single move. It's like they're basically Jeremy Summon will just nitpick and saying, oh, this misconception made by this student is like basically he doesn't understand the positions basically, for example, the students say, "Oh, my knight is bad there," and just Jeremy Summon tracks in the book. He says the knight is really good if he just knows the potential of the knight to be a very good piece rather. After you move the knight to maneuver to this square like an outpost, but the student doesn't see it. Just flat out just says verbally said, "Oh, it's not good." Just it's a blanket statement, but it's really good to see how this. Basically, the book is based on what's called imbalances to just evaluate the position. So there's static advantages like balances and dynamics. So this do you know how the statics and dynamics works about imbalances? So basically, it's like a summary. Static advantages are long term. There's no changes in them. And dynamic is advantage that is really, it can go away. For example, if you have a lead development, it's only a matter of time you're gonna just lose it. But for like static long term, it's like you have if you're having a pawn weakness, like double pawns, isolated pawns, double isolated pawns, you have a static weaknesses all be not going away from the near future. Also, Also, dynamic advantage is a space advantage. So if you have like a position, I'll just play the board. If you're playing the French defense against the French defense, and you play e5, you have what's called dynamic space advantage. So it'll not be there forever, but you have it for the moment. So basically, to assess the position to see who's better, you just want to just basically count the amount of and the severity about who has most advances that are in their favor or not in favor. So that's basically what I say for this evaluation position. So is that the way that the question was formed, or am I not missing the right?
No, I don't. I
question?
think you did fine. I mean, Reassess Your Chess is a fine book to reference.
Definitely, yeah.
Now, the only thing that I don't like about Reassess Your Chess is the people that worship the book.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, if you go through it and you're like, well, I don't like this about Reassess Your Chess, and they'll say, what?
Mm-hmm.
Blasphemy!
Yeah.
And they'll start going down on you because you hated something on the book. I mean, one of the things that I didn't like, for example, at first I didn't like fantasy positions in the way that he explained it, but in a way
Mm-hmm.
I like it if they explain it differently. And
Yeah,
then,
definitely.
what I didn't like, which somebody said in the new version that I bought, was that he changed his outlook, stating that in the first like 3 or 4 versions, he would state that if you followed his method perfectly, that it would give you the one perfect move in every position. And I thought that that was a very bad way of stating that.
Mm-hmm, definitely.
I guess he fixed that to where it's not so heavy on idea that you should follow his prescription the whole way through the book, because his book is a beautiful positional analysis book.
Definitely, yeah.
But if you take, for example, that you should always think that way during every position, and then expect that his breaking down of the position will just give you the correct move every time, I think that's just one of the most inaccurate statements that's ever been said. I mean, well, no. The most inaccurate statement, in my opinion, that's ever been said is Rapid Chess Improvement's a good book.
Definitely, but one thing is like his book is not like without exceptions. So for example, it's his rules like is his assessments, well, Reassess Chess, but his assessment baseline about positional chess is all constructed by humans, but there's always exceptions. So maybe, for example, I'll say an example. I'll show you an example rather, the board. So I have a way to play against London as black. So I'm gonna flip the board. So let's see. I'll just flip the board for me, and I'll just say I'm black. So I like to do this one to play against London. So they can go there, and actually this is a game that Magnus Carlsen played against Akara Nakamura in the Bliss game, and he won with black. And this basically is breaking Jeremy Silman's principles about weaknesses, and something like this. But then Magnus Carlsen plays bishop e6. So you think that, oh, you could take the pawn, and we had the double pawns. And according to Jeremy Silman, it's terrible. But Nakamura just failed to just play the game really correctly. So if they go knight e2, they have d5. There's no ever go knight e5. There's d6 with a pawn. There's no knight e5 forever. So Magnus Carlsen invented this idea, and he beat Nakamura with this one. So basically, German Silman is not going to be the golden rule for every positional thing, but there's exceptions.
Right. The school that I went to that's kind of similar to this is less wordy, but even that one, if you go through it, you got to find out how the different interpretations work.
Mm-hmm.
So my explanation to that question, let me see if I can. To the game before he explained it already. Okay, good. There was a question from Canis, and he said that he answer the question. What I wanted to answer was don't miss forks and don't castle too early. I think castling depends on the position and your experience. That was what I wanted to address. Is it said you said don't miss forks, which is true, and don't castle too early. So castling too early is mostly based on experience, because you can play an entire game and not castle at all, and it's perfectly fine. But in some cases, you're going to find out that you want to castle as early as the fourth move. So it really kind of depends on the experience of the player and the position that you're in. What was that? Oh, my explanation of that other question. My explanation of that question on trading is when you are. Let's go back to. Let's look at, because this is my game versus him. This is Eric here, and he's playing a Trompowsky attack. And he does that normal capture where you play on bishop takes f6 and e takes f6. So I said that you want to evaluate positions and captures and whatever else based on what you get out of the trade. So for example, if you want to validate bishop takes f6, what you're getting out of this trade is a messed up pawn structure, and that very well could be good for white, and it could eventually turn out to be bad for white. The theory states that white is basically sacrificing the bishop for the knight, because some people believe that a knight is almost sacrificing the exchange with bishop versus knights. And if you're only getting this pawn being doubled here, it might be worse for white on the grounds that this pawn is actually influencing the center. Even if you pass it up to play f5, it's still influencing the center. So you didn't exactly mess up the pawn structure well enough to let's say sacrifice the bishop. That would be one interpretation. Now another interpretation would be something less deep, like if you're going to exchange something, you want to make sure that whatever you're exchanging, let's say, this is the most famous one that I like to do. Or let's do the real famous one here. This one here is from the example from the Opera House game.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and the exchange is actually on both sides. So you play here as white, which was Morphy at the time, and you're basing this exchange on the fact that either you're going to win a pawn or you're going to win the bishop exchange. So that's actually good enough to actually do something like that. So you exchange, and then when this bishop exchanges, you don't want to bring out your queen too early most of the time, but if the queen is forced out by an exchange, that's not wasting time. So that's the logic in this exchange here. You're not wasting time, you're actually gaining time. So when the pawn recaptures, you have the opportunity to bring out another piece. So when I say maximize your activity and minimize your opponent's activity, at the start of this exchange, all of this was one tactic. You start here. If they take with the pawn, you're taking the queen, and you're recapturing, and you win a pawn. If they do what they're supposed to do and do bishop takes f3, the queen comes out, and then you have the opportunity to develop another piece. So you have two pieces developed versus black's none. When the tactic is over, you evaluate that position and say, I have the advantage because I got more out of the exchange. Oh, you don't want to bring your queen out too early, because most of the time she can be attacked. So, simplest terms. The queen is actually easily attacked when it's brought out too early, and you're just going to wind up moving her around. So the more you try to attack, the more she's going to be attacked. Okay? Does that answer your question, Candace? So if you want to play aggressive, you don't play after d4. Okay, wait. I'm getting a little dyslexic on this one. So if you want to play aggressive, you don't play after d4 and xx. You move the queen to d3. I'm not sure I understand that question, Candace. We're going to get an example. Good. I just recently started playing the Slomski after watching Gotham Chess recommending it. I'm not sure if I like it. I usually play d4 c4 player. He recommends eventually. Oh. Have you heard of this Gotham Chess? I guess he's a popular YouTuber, maybe.
Yeah, definitely a very popular YouTuber and streamer.
He was saying that he got the recommendation from Gotham Chess. I heard of Gotham Chess the other day, but it wasn't a good review. I probably wouldn't watch him anyway. But
yeah, he's acquired taste.
But it said he recently started playing the Slomski after watching Gotham Chess recommending it. And then it says he recommends eventually advancing the kingside pawn structure and keep all the pawns on the dark squares. I haven't successfully done that in our game. This was our game here. And he's talking about eventually doing stuff like this, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the things that I notice is if you're going to play g3, you might not be playing for a kingside attack.
Yeah, definitely.
So your move g3 kind of threw the kingside attack out the window. I don't remember at all, but I think sometimes the kingside attack comes after you play c4 and e3. But when they play c4, my opening book says, let's take it. And we're going to play c6, bishop d6, and we're going to have c6 and f6 keep control of the center. But yeah, you had something to add? Because this is our game, and to be honest, he did really good in this opening, and he maintained some form of equality for a long time. Well, this move here, the knight takes d6, I think is probably inaccurate.
Yeah, that is better than the bishop. So it goes back to the traditions like, oh, the bishop's already better than the knight, but not this case. So bishop e6, don't trade on the d6 bishop, because if you see the pawns, the center pawns like the d5, f5, c6, they're all light squares. So that makes the bishop on e6 caged in and bad. So if you just take, oh, I'll take that off your hands, I'll be like, oh, relief. I'll take that knight. I'll be really good trade for him as the black player.
Yeah, my statement on that is, bishops are always better than knights, but there are evaluations where you always evaluate whether or not a piece at that point is better than that piece. Because if you argue that it depends on the position, you can argue that a pawn is better than a queen depending on the position. But in this case, yeah, the knight is way better than my bishop right now. So exchanging it in this farm not only fixes my pawn structure, but it trades off a potentially really awesome knight. I was torn on that. I liked my knight better, but I was afraid you'd eventually free your bishop and want to face your bishop here in the end. Yeah, that's actually a valid fear. Let's see. Oh, are you away from the keyboard, Matt?
I'm just having lunch, but I'm
It's
still
fine.
here.
I just want to make sure that you can answer a question because you actually have a question pointed at you.
Yeah, definitely.
They wanted to know if you're an E4 or a D4 player in general.
I'm neither. I'm knight f3.
Knight F. Well, then you could be an anybody
So it's
type
more
person.
of d4 in
Yeah.
that case.
Knight F3, I think, is in general almost everything except for they tend to do D4, C4 in place of E4.
Yeah, so basically, the reason why I play knight f3 is that I can determine the opening that they can't. So if I go knight f3, they go d5, I can choose to go the ready c4, or I can do d4. It's saying, oh, I want to play a Queen's Indian or a Catalan, but that's my choice. Whereas if I go e4, then they have a wider range of choices and they control the game opening, like c6 Caracan, c5 Sicilian. The black basically turns over the control of the game to black. So if I go d4, also the same thing. They can go d5, knight f6, or something like that. But if I go knight f3, they don't have any clue what I'm going to play until they make their first move.
Yeah, that's probably a good way to put that. Well, I'm actually kind of a universal player. so when I talk about openings, I talk more in general, but I'm going to say about 6 months ago, I committed to this move order. Let's say they play e6, bishop here.
Yeah.
Bishop d6, and then castle c4, and you're basically transposing into favorable lines of the Catalan.
Definitely.
And, before I did that, I did this one.
Yeah.
And then before I did that, I did this one. And there's a whole theory based around whether or not they play the bishop out or they play e6. And I kind of somewhat mastered all of them back then, but then my whole development scheme was if they played the e6 stuff, I'd play b3 and go into a Rubinstein variation. Or what most people like to call a Zuckertort line. And then
Definitely.
if they play bishop to g4, and this might sound funny to some people, but if you play bishop to g4, we called it I think they called it the Silman line, and it's Silman's recommendation where you play h3 bishop to g4, then you play g4, they play bishop to g6, and you play knight e5. And if they play anything other than knight f to d7, you can pretty much play h4 and h5 and try to shove the pawn down their throat. It's actually a very fun variation. The most fun is probably this one. And then it forces the king to f7.
Definitely.
Because you don't want to have that stupid pawn. And then it's kind of weird to have the pawn move forward, because then you still have h4 and you have an attack on your hands. It's just insane.
Also bishop g6 and the king has to go to d7. That's another way.
Say that again now.
So after g5, they can also do bishop g6, forcing the king to d7 if you want to. So no, taking the g6, pawn takes bishop e3, then they go g5.
Oh, g5. Okay.
Yeah, they go g5. They have h4, but they also have bishop g6 instead. And instead of h4, you can go bishop g6.
Right. Oh,
there's no castling
instead of
between
h4, you can play. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and you know what? Bishop g6 might be better if you evaluate both moves.
Exactly. Yeah.
He's got another question for you, which is I think this
Ah.
is an extension of the last question. And it
Yep.
says, is that the same reason why your friend plays B2, A2, and Rook A? What?
He's talking about the B3 A through Rook
Yeah, I
A2
think he's
lines.
talking about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So is that the same reason? Okay, yeah, because he played that. Generally, I think he explained to me that one time that he plays this because his opponents don't know what to play against me or his against him. So he basically, I'll say this. He thinks that I'm sorry for the whole phone ringing, but
Feel free to, if you want to answer that, you can.
it's not for me.
Okay.
But yeah, okay. Basically, the psychological thing that he told me that the reason why he played A3 B3 Rook A2 is that he knows the game. The opponent knows the game. So like if he's playing against you, Candace, he doesn't. You don't know how to play against this opening. You don't know the theory, but there's no there because there's no theory. Basically, you're playing chess 960 now. The game is totally just changed, and you just had to play national moves to play to win without knowing A3. So
This is
this national message saying, "I know how to play without A3 better than you."
this is why I wanted to invite somebody to be a guest, because this is actually so fun to have somebody here with me. It's
Yeah.
okay. Did you answer that fully? Because there's another one that's actually pretty good too. This is
Hmm.
it's kind of actually really good that Eric and Candace are both here, but we need more people. We need more people.
Definitely, yeah.
So he says, speaking of openings, and this is new. This is new. I don't know how new the book is, but it's gaining popularity. But it says, just started recently reading Chess Structures Grandmaster Guide.
Mhm.
What structures would your recommendations be to focus on initially? I've been going through the first few pages of each chapter now to get a general feel. Uh, Before starting this, I tend to be more familiar with Queen's Gambit pawn structures for both white and black, and I'm learning the Caro-Kann is black.
Mm.
So, Eric, have you ever seen Pawn Structure Chess by Soltis? You can answer that if you want. I can still continue.
Okay.
The point of that is that are you familiar with the book, Matt?
No, I'm not familiar with the book.
What about the Soltis book? You familiar with that at all?
No,
Oh
I
wow,
haven't read many books.
wow! You
But
should actually grab one of them. I mean, I don't know about this new one because I'm thinking about getting it, but
yeah.
I think maybe you should get it because uh, a lot of people said that when they read it, they jump up a couple hundred points. But
Hmm.
basically, what it is it's kind of expanding on your take on it or my take on how to study chess.
Hmm.
But I want to show you. So, is this my? Oh, that's my game. Okay, so if we, if you're, he wants to know if what type of structures you should look at.
Oh yeah. So to like one thing I actually suggested to my one student that he says, well, I'll just say that he's a guy that is up and down and the rating like 1,000 elo. So he's saying, okay, for this year I want to just become a solid 1,000 player. So I just never go below 1,000. So it's just currently it just goes up and down and up and down. But I told him that basically you want to just choose one opening that has a structure for every single color, so white and black. So I recommend for example, if you're studying the Caro-Kann, this is perfect. So you want to study the London is white. If you're black, to play against E4, you play the Caro-Kann. If you're playing against D4, you play the Slav. It is the same pawn structure and the same plans, pretty much.
That's right. Yeah, Soltis actually separated them as combining the Caro-Kann and the Slav, so we called it the Caro-Slav structure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And
So I recommend that starting out, just have one structure that you know really well.
there's a book out by Cyrus Lakdawala that's called 1C6, and it
Hmm.
covers both the Karakan and the Slav. So just in case you're interested in that, thought I'd throw the plug out there. Um,
Mm.
what's the if you're white? This is the Carlsbad structure. So if you're
Yep.
gonna be like a Queen's Gambit player, you need to know the Carlsbad structure for one. And then, Matt said, is the Carol Khan and the Slav structure, which is after they play c6 in some formation, and it encompasses both not taking and capturing. So if they capture, then it looks basically a symmetrical pawn structure, which doesn't always equal out to being an equal game.
Hmm.
Yes, yes, it is that book. Yeah, it's actually a really good book. I learned how to play the Slav through that book first, and he recommends the Moscow Gambit line in that, which is actually pretty fun. But let's see. So you got the exchange Slav pawn structure, which is in the Slav formation, and then another one that you should probably really get used to is this one. Right here. It's called the Grunfeld pawn structure, and it basically it encompasses like 2 or 3 pawn structures, which is usually after pawn takes. So like here, here, and then you got e3 and e4. E3 generally is it's the pawn structure stays the same like this, and then e4 the pawn structure tends to go into this formation. And this is probably a very important pawn structure to focus on. And I think both books, they label it as the Grunfeld pawn structure.
Okay.
Yeah, and basically what this does is these books, and this is for your reference too, Matt, is they go by the generalized pawn structure. They don't actually do actual opening lines, and then they tell you what the, let's say, the general plans are, the common tactics, and then they only focus on the pawn structure. So that would mean that any transposition that you want to get to that pawn structure is valid.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then if you go by that logic, if you play the Rubinstein variation like I was saying, and they block up this here and you go like this pawn structure potentially is also the same as this pawn structure right here.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the ideas and some of the moves may be a little bit different, but the pawn structure is basically the same. And a lot of the times you might find out that you might even get the same attacks. So you might not want to really worry about the book too much, because in some ways you actually do think that way, but maybe it could enhance it a little bit. And this new book, the Chess Structures, is a new expanded version, so he goes basically in the same direction, it looks like, but then he has some extra material in it, and it kind of makes the book a little bit bigger.
Mm-hmm. So I just want to expand upon, starting out, the quote unquote starting out, is that you want to focus on more other things besides opening. So if you just have a really simple one method for openings, like for example, the Karakan Slav and the London is white, then you can focus on more important things like tactics, maybe end games. That'll be enhancing your game to the next level. Because the people at your level, like if you're starting out, they're focusing on openings. They want to know every single opening, but they're lacking basically if they just go right away with tactics, but they don't have any end game knowledge, then okay, I'll just get into the end game because I'll just have the leg up. So, but once I found out, like for example, for me going from 2000 to 2200, I knew that I had to get end game skills. I had to. So basically, it's like a lifeline. So if you're having a burst position in the middle, like an opening or like middle game, there's a lifeline. Trade off the queens, and you play them in the end game. So I actually did that one in a club championship years ago against a 2100 player. That he was a very good tactical player. He's like better than me at openings, but he's lower rated. But I get in the end game, like a bishop's end game, but I totally outplay them because I know the end game better. Simply because of that. So it wasn't worse, but I would want to just beat him for sure.
Eric, are you there? Dvorsky's endgame manual is on my list. Yes. No.
Not for beginners.
Yeah. Oh God. Okay. Yes. Okay. What I would do is I would get the Silman endgame book first.
Mm-hmm.
Because it goes by rating and you can actually use it all the way through to master. I don't even have Dvorsky's endgame manual at all in my collection. I only have 2 endgame books, and the only one that I've read is the Silman book. And you could argue that I'm at least a strong expert strength.
Mm-hmm.
And I could break master very, very soon. And all I ever looked at was the Silman book. So his book is enough to get you to master. But once you get out of the Silman book, there's nothing wrong with the Dvorsky's endgame manual. That's the actual true answer.
Mm-hmm.
Dvorsky's endgame manual is an advanced endgame manual and should be looked at upon as once you obtain master, you master the endgames through his book.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the... You can go through Silman's endgame manual really fast if you want. If you understand everything 100%, you don't have to be master to do Dvorsky's endgame manual either. You could be a 1800 player and do it if you start to understand the material just fine.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Something that I would probably suggest based on the way that you play and what you were talking about that you don't like, the Trompowsky, you might consider Matt's suggestion and play the London. Not necessarily the knight f3 bishop f4 version, but playing the 2 bishop f4 version.
Mm-hmm.
And then be open-minded. So like if they don't allow things like normal London type stuff, like if they try to play bishop f5, be open to lines where they play c4.
Mm-hmm.
You can, or even knight c3 at some point. Like if they play King's Indian, for example, you have a choice between knight c3 and c4, but be flexible about it. Don't be rigid and say I never want to play c4 ever in my entire life.
Definitely, yeah. You want to be flexible. That's basically the cornerstone of why I play knight f3. It's like I want to be flexible. I have choices.
Yeah. The best players in the world, I mean, if you really think about it, those players, they may seem sometimes like they're inflexible, but their secret a lot of the times is their flexibility. I mean, if you look at Magnus Carlsen, he plays just about everything.
No, yeah, definitely. Agree with that.
Which that was actually my hope when I was talking about who I hoped win the world championship when him and Anand played. I was rooting for Carlsen because he played everything. Like he was a jack of all trades, master of none. But he proved that he could win the world championship on that, and I totally flipped out on that one.
Yeah. So the cool thing about this London setup is that it's a cure-all if they go play the stuff that I told you earlier that my National Master friend in my club played b3. I can do the London system as reversed. this one, and they go rook e2. Man asks for master's friend. You don't know what to do, but you can say, "Oh, I'll just play London." It doesn't matter what you do. I'll just play this easy, like e6, c6, bishop e6. You play London. It's like if you're white, but you're now black in this case. But you know the plans. You don't have to worry about this theoretical stuff. We don't have to know a theory. Just play the normal pawn structure, and you know the plans, and you're gonna get a better game. It's with this is not, for example, if you go as white, nobody plays this way against the London. Not even well, maybe my national master friend does, but it's not going to be recommended to anybody. So you know the plans. This is going to be just crucial for white, and this basically the game, it'll be unplayable for them fairly soon.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if you know the London system, you can just use it to play against anything that is like, if they b4, okay, just play London. So yeah, there's no difference. If they play b3, b3.
This is actually a really good question, Matt.
Okay, what's the question?
It says, what should I look for to not play c4? And then it says,
not
I
play
generally
c4.
do c4 followed by knight c3. What do I look for to know I should lead with knight c3? That's actually that's a matter of opinion. His question is, when is the situations where I shouldn't play c4, but instead, when they're doing something else, you play knight c3? I personally hate knight c3.
Yeah.
I personally, matter of fact, when I played the London, and they did this,
yeah,
I avoided this like the Black Plague, and everybody recommends knight c3 because it's called the Barry attack. People love this, and it's valid. You can play it, but for me, I just hate knight c3 blocking the c4 pawn because it seems more natural to me to play c4. But in my opinion, it's just a matter of taste. So you could expand on that if you want, Matt.
Yeah, definitely. So it's very much like a conceptual personality style. So, if, for example, if you know the bear attack or what's called the Java London, and you like this sort of plans in the pawn structure, then you can aim for that with knight c3 after move 2, for example. There, and you want to say, oh, I want to go there. And you can basically, you could do the true Java London. So if they go d5, knight c3, there's a lot of, like a whole series about this of Jobava London opening, so it's really good. And if a grandmaster like Badar Jobava plays it and just really successes against the GMs, why can't you? So it's really easy to learn, and it's basically like the London. But if you want, let's say if you want to be more flexible, don't commit the knights to c3. So if you just like dying to have this knight at c3 and play the Jobava London, you can commit to that. So if you have knight at c3, it's a commitment. So if you go back, it's like, okay, you're just making a lot of nonsense moves and you're wasting temples and you lose the game. But it's basically knight c3 is a commitment. So do you want to commit or not commit? You want to have c3 or c4 in your pocket? If you're doing the normal London, let's say it's normal London, you can do e3, then go e6, now f3. There's always knight c3 in your pocket if you want to. There's no reason why you can't do that. So if they go bishop e7, bishop e3, castles, you can still do knight c3. It's a commit. This is not too early to not have knight c3. You can do it later. You can do c3 or c4. So basically the principle is playing knight c3 too early just limits your flexibility.
Right.
But yeah. That's my point. So knight c3 really quickly is like you're just having your mindset like I want to play this way. There's no turning back. I just want to commit.
So he says he likes queen on c2, bishop on d3, pawn on c4, and then knight on c3 or d2. That's actually a system, Eric. That's actually a system. It doesn't matter which way you go.
Mm-hmm.
This is the system right here, and what you're doing is you're threatening to like castle, play knight e5 and f4. And I don't know what this system is called, but one of the development schemes that you can take on is called the Pillsbury attack, and that's basically what I'm pointing out, which is after you castle, you play knight e5 and follow up with f4, and you can. It's almost similar to like a stonewall attack, but instead of having the pawn on c2, you have a pawn on c4. So the really only major difference between the Pillsbury attack and the Stonewall is that you know where your bishop's going and you have a pawn on c4. So there's really no logical difference between the two. And you're playing like f4. You're attacking on the king side. Sometimes you can attack on both sides, as a matter of fact. So it's kind of a universal system. Black, on the other hand, you know, they're trying to play things like maybe queen c7 and e5, or there's a possibility that they're trying to play bishop to b7 and c5. But
Definitely.
some point in time they need to break in the center, or they're probably gonna get squished in the space development, because at this point white has more space. And if what black allows white to just gain more space, they'll get squished in the middle game.
Definitely, yeah, for sure.
White's advantage of the bishop on b2 instead of d2. I get that it's pointing at g7, but it also looks hard to do anything as long as it stays in the center. The only reason that you put the bishop on d2 on any form is to defend against the pin. Like that. There is really no reason to place this bishop on d2. The only place that this bishop should go is either b2 or on the outside of the pawn chain. Does that make sense, Eric? He's having trouble making messages through Twitch, so he's one of the smart guys and sending me messages through Facebook.
Ah, okay.
That's where I'm getting his questions from. So, and he's also that guy that he's playing this game here that we never got around to looking at, which isn't all that important because it's still going. But this game that I uploaded to actually with the intention to kind of look at the game has turned into, if you look at the lines here, it's kind of turned into an opening book by itself.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because we've been sitting here looking at all kinds of stuff. I actually really like this idea of asking questions for people in the group. If it gets bigger, it'll get way more exciting. But I just love talking about chess no matter what. So, let's see. This is the end of his position. He played rook a2. Anyway, he had a follow-up? No, he was just answering my question. Okay. So it looks hard to do anything as long as this stays in the center. Yeah, the only true reason to play bishop d2 is to just, because let me add to that too. If you play bishop to b2 instead of bishop to d2, in some positions there's a possibility they can play knight e4. So like when you play b3 and they play here and you play here, they can play knight e4 here. And it might not be the best move, but it kind of gives you the opportunity to play bishop takes e4, pawn takes, and then you've traded off a bishop for for a knight, and black still has the opportunity to play like c5 at some point. And I don't really like those type of positions where when you play b3 and if they play bishop to b4 and you play something like this, I don't really like those positions either way. So my automatic response would be to play bishop c2 and bishop to b2. That way the position is just a little more stable, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a system, and you can adopt this system. It's safe, and it's pretty sound. I know she's pretty young, but she's a women's candidate master now, rated about 2100 or 2180.
Mm-hmm.
And she uses this system against me, and the only reason, in my opinion, that she's lost against me in any form is because when we play this, we're usually playing like a 45-minute game, and she's a thinker. So we'll get into an equal position, and then she'll start noticing she's losing on time and then make mistakes.
Mm.
And I think we've probably got, I think I'm +1 on her with probably, I don't know, I'm going to say 6 games played. So we're kind of equal in that respect, but I tend to get her more often than not when she plays this system and we're playing fast games.
I see.
Yeah, but this stuff is not bad at all. This is actually, if you think about it, this is actually part of the Zukertort system.
Mm-hmm.
That what you're looking at is this stuff here. Oh, usually it's this. Castle, bishop to b2, knight c6. And then at some point, either before or after, you play c4 and then queen to c2, and you're basically in the same position. So the Zukertort system is just, most of the time you're playing regular moves, and then you're either never playing c4 or you're delaying c4.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I got the idea for black. D takes c4 is a decent move after bishop d3. Make sure the bishop move again to recapture. So sometimes I'll take c takes d4 before bringing my bishop out. Is that hurtful for white's pawn structure? I got the idea for black. D takes c4 is a decent move. Oh, make through. Okay, sometimes I'll take c takes d4 before bringing out.
I'll be right back.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So you're talking about this. Yeah, why not? Is that what you're talking about? Right there, Eric? Yeah, this is actually recommended for everybody. It's actually when you're here and you play c4 and they play e6, it's actually recommended that you go into the exchange variation lately. They're claiming that it's easy and better for white in most situations. So it's actually a very easy system to learn. And as long as you remember to bring the bishop on the outside of the pawn chain and lock it up, it really doesn't matter how you develop. Most people say lately that you want to bring out this knight first, lock up the position, play queen to c2, and then when they are in this position, they usually play like this. You have the choice of knight f3 or knight ge2, and people are recommending the knight ge2 as the more dangerous option. So they think that placing the knight here with the option to play f4 and knight g3 as a more dangerous option for white.
I'm back.
You're familiar with this stuff, yeah, Matt?
So what was it?
This is that example on the Carlsbad pawn structure where, oops, d4, d5, c4, e6, c takes d5. This is that variation on the Carlsbad pawn structure where when they come up to this position, they have the choice of knight, where the knight goes. And the recent theory is that knight ge2 is better than knight f3.
Okay.
c2, bishop d3, does the move order matter? Why was it that the move order mattered here? I don't think the move order matters. I don't remember why queen to c2, but I don't think the move order matters. No, I don't think the move order matters at all. Now, what matters is just your opinion on what you want to play at this point, which is whether or not you want to play the knight to f3 or the knight to e2. That's what matters, and you got to kind of know the plans of both. When I first learned this system, it was knight f3 that was recommended, and then when they played rook e8, you played either one. Actually, you could play castle kingside or queenside, but what you're doing is you're playing, if you play castle queenside, you're promoting them to play that, and if they play that, then knight e5 was said to give an advantage to black or white. And I still agree with that. I mean, somebody might have gotten a draw before. Like this says, these two guys got a draw, but I still believe that this gives advantage to white. I mean, you literally have to be very careful just to not lose a pawn here.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
And you know, I don't know how true this is, but I don't see anything wrong with learning this system as a 1500 player.
No, there's no problem.
I learned this when I was 1600, and it helped me get to 1900. So I mean, I don't see any problems with learning this system at all. And the funny thing, I don't know if anybody remembers this, but when I learned it, it was from Roman Zingiashvili. So he had a and I don't know if you know about this, but he had a whole DVD set that was called Chess Openings the Easy Way for the Tournament Player or something like that. It was Roman's Lab Volume 5 and 6. White was this, right? It was basically the whole Queen's Gambit exchange system, and he went over this, where no matter what they do, c6 or e6, you always take. And his formula was actually rather simple, and remember, this took me to 1900. So you take, you play knight f3, they play knight f6, You play knight c3, they play knight c6, you play bishop to g5 or f4. Lock it up, and you can play bishop d3 or b5, and you doesn't matter what you're doing. You play this, and you will have a fine game. And that's exactly what he said. And then he actually expanded further with this one, saying that if you play pawn takes pawn, you play knight f3, they play knight f. Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize. You play knight c3, they play knight here. You play bishop to g5, and at the time that he wrote this, he said bishop e7, e3, castle, knight f3, and he said to this, he said that you're playing against the bishop on c8. And that if this bishop comes out safely, you did something wrong.
Yeah.
Now, I don't 100% agree with that, but whenever this bishop comes out too early, you get an advantage. But then, basically, once you got up to like these points here, you had the choice of castling either way, and the theory ended there. He expanded on a few things, like if you castle, you're playing knight e5, f4, and then h3 and g4. And then if you play castle kingside, you're committing to the queenside minority attack.
Yeah, definitely.
That's where he stopped. And then he went this direction, where if you play knight f6, and then you play here. And I've gotten so many people with the trap that's in this line that it's absolutely sickening.
Yeah.
So like if you play here, and what people will do is they'll forget that this isn't the e4 with the bishop on c1, and they'll play rook e8.
Yeah.
You castle, and they'll play e5. And then you just win a pawn.
Definitely, yeah.
And it's literally a free pawn, and I've seen people all the way up to 2,000 dropping this pawn. Believe it or not. Yeah, it's actually it's literally amazing, and I don't know if I haven't played this in ages, but yeah, let's see.
So that's the pawn structure pretty much everybody needs to know. Is for black, they can play the King's Indian setup with this f6, g6, bishop g7. You have to know how to play against that structure. Whichever opening you do, especially with London, they can play that sort of structure against it.
Yeah, this is what I used to play when they played the King's Indian against the London.
Yeah.
I used to call this the London King. I used to call this the Super London.
Oh yeah.
Because you could play the London system with c4.
Definitely.
Let me see. He's saying. I think Eric is our most active player right now. Okay, so he was saying this. Pawn takes. Knight c3, knight f6, bishop g5 here. And then usually at this point you play here. I think I know what you're talking about. I'm gonna say what he's saying is could you please go through the part about playing against the bishop on c8 some more? When would you want h3 to keep it from coming out? I don't think there's ever a time that you play h3 actually, because I think that was one of the reasons why queen c2 is played before bishop to d3 is to make sure that it doesn't go to f5 and g4, because if you play queen to c2 here, let's say c6, queen to c2, if they play bishop to g4 now, you have a free f3 move. Yeah, that's what I'm going over now. You said something like you're playing against the bishop on c8. If they play bishop to g4 here, your plan when you're playing bishop to d3 and knight to e2 is literally to play f3 and e4. So it's not, if they play bishop to g4 like this, there's literally nothing wrong with playing like f3 or even bishop to d3 with knight to e2 follow up. And then what's this bishop really doing?
Definitely.
It's even in the list here. I guess f3 isn't in the list, but I wouldn't be opposed to playing f3. Yeah, I wouldn't mind playing this at all. And then the knight goes to g3. If the bishop goes to g7, you're playing e4. I wouldn't be opposed to playing that at all.
Yeah.
I think that there's a move order where if they play bishop to e6, you can't do this. You can't play f3 and e4 because there's like a move order trick. I don't remember it right now, but maybe if you play this system, you might want to be aware of that. I found out about it by one of the training courses I took by Mezgen Amanov. He had literally like 15 moves that prove that this line doesn't work against bishop e6, and you have to stall it for like 5 moves or something. But I don't remember.
I see.
Yeah, I haven't played this in like 5 years, so I don't even remember it. I switched back over to e4 to see if I can understand the Scotch, but I suppose I could switch back to this. I mean, I'm really am like a universal player, to be honest. Go through the, okay, so all that makes sense. Good. One of the thought processes was, let's say, here, I believe. Here. So there's a, if you play like bishop out, or bishop to e6, you can play queen to b3, and there's the problem with this guy here.
Definitely, yeah.
And then if the queen goes here, you could capture on f6.
Yeah, pawns are.
So you mess up the pawn structure a little bit. This pawn structure would be one of the big reasons as to why you take on f6, because this is actually a bad pawn structure, whereas the other one where there was a pawn on g7 isn't a bad pawn structure.
Definitely. I agree with that.
Well, we're not popular today. We just have the 2 people, which is good enough for me. But did you have any more questions there, Eric? Because I might shut this down in a little bit. Did you have anything that you wanted to say, Matt? Like anything really? Because I think you're on my list as somebody that wants to get known as a teacher, right?
Yeah, a coach. Yeah, for the Facebook group. Yeah.
So if you want to say something real quick on how to contact you, if you'd like, or like if you want to say, hey, I want to get out there as a teacher, and
yeah, definitely.
Just contact me this way. Feel free to do that now, and then I'll close this down.
Yeah. So should I type in the YouTube chat, or
you can say it right here, because this is going to auto upload to YouTube and it'll be saved.
Okay. So basically, there's if you want to contact me for personal lessons, you can contact me whichever with the Facebook group and the Chess Teachers and Learning Facebook group. You can message me there. But also, I recommend that if you don't want to have personal lessons, but you want to have me coach you in like a sort of like correspondence way, I really recommend you guys to subscribe and look at my YouTube channel. That's going to be right out of the gate. I'm starting a YouTube channel that's basically focused on teaching chess. And if you have any questions for anything like conceptualized, endgames, openings, strategy, anything that you can think of. I'll make it high quality video for you for free. But you only have to just subscribe and just send me the idea at the comment section and you get it.
If you want,
So,
you can type the URLs in there.
oh yeah.
Also,
So the URL for the channel? Yeah, I will do that. I'll do that. Hold on. But yeah, this is a good deal. It's for free, so it doesn't cost you anything. But it basically says thank you for subscribing, and I'll be happy to do as many and whatever videos you want to do regarding chess improvement. So basically, a Middle Eagle Learning Center, and my channel is that name, Middle Eagle Learning Center.
very good, very good. So, is that it on your information?
Yes, basically this is like that is like besides my Facebook name, Matt Slomski in the group, this is the best way to contact me.
Very good. Okay, well, I think I'm going to close this down, and I had a very fun time with you coming in here, Matt. So I'm very thankful that you came.
Thank you for allowing me to be a podcast.
Yeah, this worked out so well that I'm offering anybody that wants to. I'm thinking anybody that's 1900 or higher to be able to be as a guest speaker, and yeah, this worked out really well, and I'm hopefully everybody starts coming. I'm gonna make this next week. I'm gonna go back to the noon my time, so it seemed like it produced a lot more people. So I'm going to go ahead and close this down, and thank you very much for coming, Matt. I'm very happy to meet you.
Yeah.
You have a good
Likewise,
day.
so it's a pleasure.
All right, have a good day, everybody. And now I just got to close this down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's all promote this in the group. I agree. Okay, have a good night, everybody.